There are moments in life when you look back and realize exactly when everything changed. When a single decision, a single sentence, broke all the rules you had built to protect yourself. My name is Lucas. I'm 28, and I work as a marketing analyst at a tech startup in São Paulo. And for 2 years, I lived 2 completely different lives. At the office, I was the dedicated professional, focused, always with the right answer on the tip of my tongue. But inside, I held a secret I hid so carefully that sometimes even I forgot it existed. Until one day, I cracked a joke with my boss. A bold, irresponsible, desperate joke. I said, "Fire me or kiss me." He smiled and locked the door, and everything I had built to protect myself crumbled in seconds. But let's slow down. Let me tell you how I got to that moment. When I joined this company 3 years ago, I had just gotten out of a frustrating relationship with a woman I dated for 5 years. Everyone thought we were going to get married. My parents were already picking out wedding venues. But I ended it. Not because she was bad, not because we fought. I ended it because I couldn't fake it anymore. Fake feeling what I was supposed to feel. Fake that it was enough. Fake that I wasn't looking elsewhere when she wasn't watching. Joining that company was my chance to start over. A blank slate, you know? Nobody knew my past. Nobody asked questions. I could just be Lucas, the competent professional, the guy who delivers results. And for a good while, it worked. I dove headfirst into work. Projects, presentations, reports. The busier I was, the less time I had to think about what was really going on inside me. And then, he showed up. Daniel Carvalho, 38 years old, director of operations, new to the company, transferred from the regional office in another city. On his first day, there was that formal introduction meeting. He walked into the conference room with a presence I can't describe. It wasn't just confidence, it was something deeper. A natural masculinity, effortless, with no need to prove anything. He greeted everyone firmly, looked each person in the eye, and when it was my turn, I felt something I didn't expect. A knot in my stomach, heat rising up my neck. My hand shook when I shook his. I had never felt that before. Not like that. So immediate. So intense. Over the next few months, I tried to ignore it. Tried to focus on work, avoid prolonged eye contact, keep conversations strictly professional. But our company isn't big. 35 employees, 2 floors, an open space where everyone sees everyone all the time. It's impossible to hide. And the more I tried to avoid it, the more I noticed the details. The way he gestured when explaining an idea. The way he laughed, with his head tilted slightly back. The deep voice that echoed through the room when he took a call. His cologne, which I could smell when he walked by my desk. I started questioning myself, seriously. At 28, after dating women my whole life, there I was, sitting at my desk, pretending to analyze spreadsheets while watching my boss out of the corner of my eye. And the worst part, I was sure he knew. Because there were moments. Little moments I didn't know if I was imagining or if they were real. Once, during a results presentation, he stood next to me, so close I could feel the heat of his arm almost touching mine. He didn't need to stand that close. There was plenty of room. But he stayed. And when I looked at him, quickly, just to check if everything was okay, he was already looking at me. For 2-3 seconds that felt like an eternity. And then he smiled. That way. As if he knew exactly what was going on inside my head. Another time. On a Friday afternoon, almost everyone had already left. I stayed behind to finish a report. He walked by my desk, stopped, and put his hand on the back of my chair, asking, "Still glued to that desk, Lucas? Ever heard of work-life balance?" Nervous and trying to play it cool, I replied, "Just tying up loose ends, 20 minutes, tops." He stayed there, unusually still, for longer than he should have. Then, almost whispering, "Don't forget to actually live, okay? Work matters, but it's not everything." And then he left. I froze, my heart hammering so loud I was certain the whole office could hear it. Don't forget to actually live. What did that even mean? Was it just standard management speak? Or was there something deeper to it? I couldn't sleep properly anymore. I'd lie awake going through every interaction, every glance, every word. Was there actually something there? Or was I just seeing what I wanted to see? The truth was undeniable, though. I was falling for him, hard, and that was a massive problem. He was my boss. The company had strict policies about workplace relationships at different levels, and I had no idea if he was even interested in men. But there was something in those looks, something I couldn't ignore. An electricity in the air when we were alone. The way he found excuses to walk by my desk. A smile he reserved just for me, different from the professional smile he gave everyone else. 3 months in, something happened that nearly destroyed me. The company threw a happy hour to celebrate landing a big contract. Everyone was at the bar, beers, snacks, loud music. I tried to fit in, laugh at the jokes, act normal, but my mind was entirely on him. He was across the room chatting with the IT team, beer in hand, laughing. Then he looked up, caught my eye across the crowded bar, and he waved. Just a casual wave. But the way he was looking at me said something completely different. It was deliberate. It meant something. I chugged my beer and left. I went home. I couldn't take it anymore. If you're listening and you've gone through something similar, you know the feeling. That cocktail of desire, confusion, fear, and hope that eats away at you. You start questioning everything about yourself, who you really are, what you truly want, how much you're willing to risk. I spent weeks in that limbo, going to work, doing my tasks, avoiding direct contact with him whenever possible. But it was unsustainable, because the more I avoided him, the more I thought about him. The more I tried to suppress it, the stronger that feeling in my chest became. And then came the project that changed everything. The company landed a big client with a very tight deadline. 3 weeks to deliver a complete product launch campaign. Daniel called me to lead the project with him. Just the two of us. Daily meetings, revisions at night, working weekends. I wanted to refuse, to make up an excuse. But I couldn't. It was a huge professional opportunity, so I accepted. Even knowing it would be torture. And it was. But not in the way I imagined. In the first meetings, we kept everything strictly professional. Strategy, timeline, task division. He was brilliant, focused, decisive, but gentle. He always asked for my opinion before making a decision. He always gave credit to my ideas. He treated me as a partner, not a subordinate. And little by little, the conversation started to get more personal. Nothing too deep at first. Just loose comments. He mentioned that he had moved to São Paulo alone, that he was living in a small rented apartment, that he missed his family but needed this change. I told him I had recently ended a long relationship, that I was focusing on growing my career. We really started to get to know each other. Beyond the titles, the emails, the presentations. One night, 2 days before the final deadline, we stayed until 2 in the morning at the office, finalizing the last details of the campaign. Everyone else had already left. It was just me, him, and the silence of the empty building. We were sitting side by side at the meeting table, surrounded by papers, open laptops, forgotten cold coffee cups. At one point, he leaned back in his chair, sighed deeply, and said, "Honestly, you're incredible. Seriously. I couldn't have pulled this off without you." Still typing, trying to stay cool, I replied, "Come on. You led the whole project. I just filled in the gaps." He turned to me, and this time there was no way to look away. He looked at me in a way that left no doubt. "Don't underestimate your worth, Lucas. You're much more than you think." My heart stopped. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. He kept looking at me. 3, 4, 5 seconds, an eternity. And then he smiled that way, and looked back at his computer screen. As if he hadn't just turned my world upside down. I stayed the rest of the night in that room, finishing the work on autopilot, while my head screamed, he knows, and he feels the same way. Or he knows and is just being kind, or he doesn't know anything and I'm completely crazy." When we finally finished, it was already 4 in the morning. He stood up, stretched, and said, "Come on, I'll drive you home. No point in taking a cab at this hour." I should have refused, but I couldn't. I accepted. In his car, the tension was unbearable. Soft music played. The quiet streets passed by in the darkness. Neither of us spoke, until he broke the silence. "You were dating, right? How long since you broke up?" I, surprised by the direct question, replied, "About 8 months." He nodded, looking at the street. "And is everything okay now?" I laughed nervously. "Depends on what you call okay. Let's just say I'm still figuring myself out." He looked at me quickly, and then turned his eyes back to the street. "I understand. Sometimes we need time to figure out what we really want." That sentence echoed in my head for the rest of the night. What I really want. What did I really want? I wanted him. It was that simple, and that terrifying. In the days following the project's end, I expected things to go back to normal, that we would resume our professional distance, that those deep conversations would be left behind. But that's not what happened. He kept finding reasons to pass by my desk. He kept calling me to meetings that could easily be resolved by email. He kept looking at me that way, and I started to realize it wasn't just in my head. Other colleagues started commenting jokingly that Daniel had adopted me as his favorite protege, that I was the boss's darling. I laughed along, pretended it was just a coincidence, but inside I was in a panic. If others were noticing, it meant there was something to notice. I had to do something. I needed to know, because it was consuming me. I couldn't sleep properly anymore, couldn't focus on anything but him. It was as if my entire life had been reduced to those brief moments in the office, those looks, those smiles, those conversations that seemed to say everything and nothing at the same time. That's when I made the craziest, most irresponsible, most desperate decision of my life. I was going to test it. I was going to force the issue. I was going to find out once and for all if all of this was real or if I was delusional all on my own. But how? How do you cross that line without blowing everything up? How do you turn unspoken tension into something concrete without risking your job, your reputation, your sanity? I spent days planning, imagining scenarios, rehearsing lines. Until, on a Thursday afternoon, it happened naturally. No planning, no rehearsal. I was at my desk, wrapping up a presentation. He walked over, stopped, glanced at my screen and said, "You're going to burn out, Lucas. It's not sustainable." And before I could think, without any filter, heart pounding out of my chest, I turned to him and just said it. "So what'll it be? You going to fire me or do something about it?" He laughed a real, surprised laugh. "Depends what you mean by collapse." And then, on pure impulse, I made eye contact and just laid it out there, with a half smile that barely hid how terrified I was. "Okay then, boss. Fire me or kiss me, because I can't do this anymore." Then nothing. Just silence. Dead silence. It felt like it went on forever. He just stared at me. No smile. No movement. Just looking. And I was already mentally drafting my resignation email, figuring out how to disappear, wondering which city I'd move to. But then, slowly, he smiled. And he looked around the office, saw there were people, saw we weren't alone, and whispered so quietly I almost didn't hear, "Come with me." He turned and walked toward the small meeting room at the end of the hall. I stood up, legs shaking, and followed. I entered the room. He closed the door behind me and locked it. And in that moment, with the sound of the lock echoing in the empty room, I knew. I knew that everything I had felt, everything I had imagined, all those looks and smiles and loaded conversations were real. They were reciprocal. They were inevitable. He turned to me, still smiling, but now with something different in his eyes. Something intense. Something that left no room for doubt. And in that deep voice that made my knees weak, he said, "You're playing with fire, Lucas, and I really hope you know what you're getting into." I couldn't sleep. I kept turning everything over in my mind. How was I going to test this without looking like a complete idiot? How could I find out if these feelings meant anything? Or if I was just building castles in the air? Because that's what happens when you develop feelings for someone you shouldn't, right? You start seeing meaning in every little thing. A lingering glance becomes a confession. A casual chat becomes something intimate. And you're stuck in this awful limbo, unsure if you're reading it right or just imagining things. The next morning, I walked into the office with my heart beating out of rhythm. He was already there, as always, crisp dress shirt, hair perfectly styled, typing something on the computer with that concentration that made me want to just stare. I wondered if he had slept well, if he thought about me when he was alone, if I crossed his mind even for a second. Idiot, I know. But the heart doesn't care about logic. I spent the whole morning trying to concentrate on work and failing miserably. Every time he walked by my desk, my whole body went on alert. It was pathetic. I was an adult. I had responsibilities, bills to pay, a career to build, and there I was, acting like a love-struck teenager. But then something happened. He stopped at my desk, put his hand on the back of my chair, leaned in slightly to see my computer screen. So close I could smell his cologne, that woody fragrance that made me completely dizzy. "How's the report going?" he asked, his voice low, almost intimate. I could barely answer. "Good, almost done." He stood there for a few more seconds, eternal seconds, and then he said, as casually as if it meant nothing, "Good job. You have a natural talent for this." A natural talent. He had noticed. I wasn't just another employee to him. My heart raced. That was a sign, right? It had to be. But then came the doubt. The damn doubt that corrodes everything. What if he said that to everyone? What if it was just professionalism? What if I was completely deluding myself? I spent the rest of the morning oscillating between hope and despair, analyzing every word, every gesture, every look, asking myself if I was going crazy or if there was really something there. This emotional roller coaster was killing me inside, but I couldn't stop. Lunchtime hit and I tried to lose myself in the cafeteria, but my brain wouldn't quit. I kept playing out scenarios, him asking me to meet privately, him admitting he felt the same way, the memory of his touch, his eyes locked on mine. And then I'd imagine the worst, him shutting me down. The shame, the nightmare of having misread all the signals, of laying my feelings bare to someone who saw me as nothing more than a colleague. Even worse, losing my job and my reputation over a crush I couldn't control. When I got back to my desk after lunch, there was a note. Small, folded, sitting on top of my keyboard. My name written in that handwriting I already knew by heart. My hands were trembling when I opened it. "I need you to stick around tonight. We need to go through those numbers before the meeting tomorrow. Thanks." Short, to the point, professional. But that's not what my heart heard. My heart translated it to, "I want you here alone with me. I need to be near you." I was lost. Completely lost. The day dragged on in delicious agony. Every hour that passed brought me closer to that moment of being alone with him in the empty office, after everyone else had already left. I didn't know if I was anxious or terrified. Probably both. When the workday ended, people started to leave. One by one, the desks emptied, the lights flicked off, the office plunging into that characteristic end-of-day silence. And I stayed, waiting. He appeared at 7:30, tie undone, sleeves rolled up. He looked different this way, less buttoned up, more real. My stomach clenched. "Sorry to keep you late," he said, pulling up a chair and sitting next to me. Not across from me, next to me. So close our knees almost touched. "No problem," I replied, trying to sound casual, but my voice came out a bit hoarse. He pulled out the reports, started talking through numbers and projections. I faked interest. There was no way I could focus on spreadsheets when he was this close. I could feel the warmth from his body, his hand moving through his hair as he concentrated. And then it happened. Our fingers touched. Accidentally. Both reaching for the same sheet at the same time. A brief, innocent touch. But neither of us pulled back. We stayed there, fingers touching over that spreadsheet, for 2-3 seconds. My heart was hammering so hard I knew he had to hear it. I pulled my hand away finally, my face burning hot. I looked up, expecting to see discomfort or awkwardness. But what I found was different. He was looking right at me. Not at the papers. At me. "You okay?" he asked quietly. And there was something different about his voice. Careful, tender, intimate. I am, I lied, just worn out. He kept staring at me. And in that moment, nothing else existed. Just us and the space between us. All that tension, all that possibility, all that danger. Then he did something that nearly killed me. He reached over and straightened my collar. Such a small thing, almost fatherly, but his hand lingered. His fingers grazed the side of my neck. "You're working yourself too hard," he said, barely above a whisper. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. All I could feel was his touch, that moment stretching into something that definitely wasn't appropriate or professional. Then he let go. He turned back to the papers like nothing happened, like he hadn't just unraveled me with a single touch. "Let's call it a night," he said, standing up. "It's getting late. You need to head home and rest." And I sat there, completely paralyzed, watching him go back to his office, grab his things, get ready to leave. As if that moment had meant absolutely nothing, but it had meant something. I knew it had. Or did it? Was I creating meaning where there was none? Was I so desperate for any sign of reciprocity that I was interpreting kindness as romantic interest? I went home in shock. Couldn't stop replaying that moment over and over. His touch, that look, his voice. Every single detail burned into my mind. I didn't sleep that night either. But this time I wasn't planning anything. I was doubting myself. I was scared. Because I finally understood the truth. I was completely in love with that man. It wasn't just physical attraction. It wasn't just professional admiration. It was something deep, visceral, terrifying. And I had no idea what he felt for me. In the following days, everything got weird. He was different with me, more distant, more formal, as if he had realized things were getting dangerous and had decided to retreat. Or maybe I had imagined everything from the start. Every interaction became torture. He asked for reports by email instead of coming to my desk in person. In meetings, he avoided looking directly at me, and that heat, that tension I was sure existed between us, simply evaporated. I was losing my mind. I thought about him all the time. Dreamt about him. Woke up in the middle of the night with my heart racing, remembering his touch on my neck, the way he had looked at me that night. I had to do something. I had to find out once and for all if I was going crazy alone or if there was really something between us. But how? How do you ask your boss if he feels the same as you without risking everything? The answer came on a gray Wednesday. I was in the elevator alone, heading to a meeting. Just as the doors were closing, a hand stopped them. It was him. He stepped in. Doors shut. And there we were, just the two of us in that small space, going up multiple floors. The quiet was suffocating. I could feel his presence. So close. So impossible. "Can we talk?" he said suddenly, his voice tense. My heart stopped. "Sure. Not here. After hours. In my office." And before I could answer, the doors opened. He walked out, left me there, shaking, trying to understand what had just happened. Talk. He wanted to talk. Was that good or bad? Was it the end or the beginning? The rest of the day was a blur. I can't even remember exactly what happened. All I know is that when 6 o'clock finally hit, when the office started to clear out, my heart was beating so hard I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I knocked on his office door at 6:30. "Come in," he said. I walked in. He was at the window with his back to me, looking out. Without turning, he spoke. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." I could barely breathe. "Okay." He finally turned around, and what I saw on his face was vulnerability, fear, doubt, the same things I was feeling. "Am I making this up?" he said, barely audible. "Or are you actually feeling something for me?" The world stopped. He had just asked me the same question that had been killing me inside for weeks. He was just as lost as I was. And in that moment, I understood. I wasn't alone in all this madness. But before I could answer, before I could say anything, he continued. "Because I can't stop thinking about you. It's driving me insane. And I know I shouldn't be saying this. It's completely out of line. It could blow everything up. but I can't keep pretending anymore. Tears burned my eyes, not from sadness, from pure relief. He felt it. He was feeling it. It wasn't just me. My voice cracked. I took a deep breath. Tried again. I feel the same way. I thought I was going crazy all by myself. The smile that appeared on his face was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen in my life. And then he said something that changed everything. So what do we do now? Good question. Great question. Because wanting something and being able to have something are two completely different things. He was my boss. I was his employee. There were rules, policies, consequences. But in that moment, looking at him, seeing that mix of hope and fear in his eyes, I made a decision. Tomorrow I was going to do it. I was going to take the leap, because staying trapped in this pain and doubt was worse than facing whatever came next. Tomorrow I was going to tell him everything. All of it. Raw and honest. Tomorrow I was going to throw caution to the wind, and whatever happened after, we'd figure it out together. I was awake before my alarm, 6 a.m., and my heart was already sprinting. That feeling when you know today is make or break, no gray area. I lay there, staring up, hands shaking, running the same line through my head over and over. Fire me or kiss me. Simple, direct, maybe funny. Or maybe I'd be walking out with a security escort by lunch. You know that moment when you've already decided but your fear tries to pull you back. That was me. I'd already crossed that line last night. The decision was made. Staring at the pale light through the window, the only thing left to wonder was, what's the worst that could happen? Fired? I'd already mentally rewritten my resume. Public shame? I'd lived through it. But what if he just laughed? What if I imagined that connection? What if I was seeing things that weren't there? I got up, took a cold shower trying to wake up my courage. Every drop of cold water seemed to scream, "Are you really going to do this? Are you really going to risk everything?" Yes, I was. Driving to work, my stomach a mess. I rehearsed the delivery. The tone had to be light. Not desperate. Not pathetic. It had to be a joke loaded with everything I felt, but with an exit strategy in case it all blew up. Just messing around, boss. Done. But I knew the truth. It wasn't really a joke. It was everything I was too scared to say openly. My whole vulnerable heart, dressed up as a joke, trying to sound brave while secretly terrified. I got to the office 20 minutes early. Place was still empty, just the night security guard heading out. In the elevator, I caught my reflection in the steel walls. Dark circles, a terrible attempt at confidence. "You've got this," I muttered. Doors opened on our floor, everything quiet, lights turning on automatically as I walked. I sat at my desk, booted up the computer, and just waited, staring at the loading screen. My heart wouldn't settle, hands shaking slightly, throat dry. What if he was already there? What if I ran into him now, alone in the empty office, and the words just exploded out of my mouth uncontrollably? Or worse, what if I froze, and all that courage evaporated when it mattered most? I took a deep breath. Once, twice, 3 times. The sound of the front door opening. Footsteps. I'd recognize that walk anywhere. Firm, confident, but unhurried. He always walked like someone who had total control of the environment. And he did. He walked past my desk and noticed me. Stopped. "You're here early," he said, with that half smile I could never quite read. Interest? Pity? Just being friendly? "You know, work stuff," I said, trying to sound casual. I absolutely didn't. He watched me for what felt like forever, head tilted slightly. "Want some coffee?" Saying yes meant extending my torture. Saying no meant losing this moment. "Yeah, sure." We headed to the tiny break room. He made coffee for both of us, that quiet routine we'd developed over months. I always wondered if he felt it too, that electricity every time we were alone, or if I was just making it up. "You're wound up," he said, handing me the cup. Our fingers brushed. My pulse jumped. "You good?" Now. It was now. The perfect cue. The moment I had rehearsed. My mouth opened, but the words didn't come out. I froze. Completely. I, work. You know how it is. Weak. Pathetic. I wanted to kick myself. He nodded, but that gaze didn't leave me. As if he knew there was something else. As if he were waiting. Was he? Or was it all in my head? We went back. The office filled up. Meetings started, emails came in, phones ringing. The day swallowed any chance to talk. And I spent it all with that confession sitting in my chest, burning. Every time I passed his office, there he was, focused on his screen or on a call. Formal, professional, unreachable. And I thought, did I imagine everything? Those looks that lasted too long? Those conversations with hidden meaning? The way he kept finding excuses to meet with me alone? Maybe I was crazy. Maybe this was a gigantic mistake. But then, at 5 in the afternoon, when the office started to empty out, he appeared at my desk. I need to close the quarterly report today. Can you stay a little longer? I need your part. Of course, I replied automatically. But my heart had already understood. We were going to be alone again. 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7. The office emptied completely. Just the two of us, each at our desk, working in silence. But there was something different in the air. An anticipation. Or maybe it was just my desperation projecting. Can you come here? I want to review this part with you, he called from his office. I stood up, legs shaky. I went in. He was standing by the desk, not sitting as usual. Small space, inevitable proximity. He pointed to something on the printed report, but I could barely focus on the words. He was too close. I could smell his cologne, subtle but present. I could see the details of his face that you only notice when you're inches away. You really seem tense today, he said again, but this time with a lower voice, more personal. Did something happen? And that was the moment I understood. It wasn't just professionalism. It wasn't just casual curiosity. There was something in the way he looked at me. Something in the way he had created this excuse to make me stay. Something in the way he was too close to be accidental. Either he knew, or he felt the same thing. Or I was completely wrong and about to make the biggest mistake of my life. But I had decided. Today was the day. I took a deep breath, looked directly into his eyes, and the words finally came out, with that teasing tone that barely hid how terrified I was. Look, boss. You've got a choice to make. Fire me or kiss me. Because I'm done pretending this is just about work. Silence. Absolute silence. My heart stopped. Literally stopped. I had said it. I had really said it. There was no going back. Those words were in the air, impossible to take back, impossible to undo. And he just looked at me. 3 seconds. 5 seconds. 10. Every second felt like a year. My brain was screaming, my body locked up, no way to back out or laugh it off. I watched his face change. Surprise? Anger? I couldn't tell. Just this long, intense stare. Then he smiled. Not polite, not nervous. A real smile that started small and spread across his whole face, his eyes coming alive in a way I'd never seen. A smile that meant, finally. Relief flooded through me. Pure, chemical relief. Everything I'd imagined, everything I'd hoped for, it was real. He felt it too. But he didn't say anything. He just moved, walked to the office door, and locked it. That click was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. It was the moment everything shifted. It was official now, not tension anymore, not secret attraction, real. He turned back to face me, the locked door now our barrier from the world. And the way he looked at me was nothing like a boss, nothing professional about it. So, you really can't pretend anymore? He asked quietly, that husky edge to his voice as he stepped closer. My mind was racing with panic and ecstasy at the same time. He had locked the door. He had smiled. He was coming towards me. This was happening. It was really happening. But there was still that sliver of doubt, that lingering fear, that voice asking, what if you read this wrong? What if this ends badly? But I'd already jumped. Already risked it all. No going back now. I can't keep doing this, I said, voice unsteady but sincere. Not for another day. He took another step. Now he was so close I could see his breath, slightly quickened. So close that if I reached out, I could touch his chest. Me too, he confessed, and those two words were like a bomb. Him too. He was pretending too. He felt it too. For months. Months of us both there, keeping up masks, keeping our distance, maintaining professionalism, while inside, the same tension was devouring us. My brain wasn't processing it right. It was relief, desire, fear, hope, all mixed together with an intensity I had never felt before. So, I started, but my voice failed me. My throat was dry. What do you choose? Fire me or... He smiled again, this time with a touch of irony. Do you really think I'd lock the door to fire you? My heart exploded. That confirmation was so direct, so clear. No more ambiguity, no more doubt. He had chosen. And by the way he was looking at me now, by the way he was standing there, so close, so present, so real, I knew exactly what was coming next. The empty office around us. The low light of late afternoon pouring through the windows. The city outside continuing its routine, oblivious to the fact that my entire world was being reconfigured inside that locked room. I had risked everything. I had put everything on the table with a line disguised as a joke. And he had answered with a smile and a lock on the door. And now, standing there, hearts racing, breaths synchronized, all that pretending from months finally crumbling, there was only one certainty. Nothing would ever be the same again. The sound of the lock turning echoed in the room like silent thunder. My heart was pounding so hard I thought he could hear it. My boss's smile was still there, but now there was something else, a vulnerability I had never seen before. He wasn't behind the desk anymore. He was just a few steps away from me, and the air between us felt electrically charged. Did you just lock the door? My voice came out weaker than I intended. He nodded slowly, running a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I had never seen him make. The man who led meetings with unshakable authority was standing in front of me, and his hands were trembling slightly. Yes, he said, his voice low, because I need to tell you something, and I can't risk us being interrupted. I swallowed hard. The room suddenly felt smaller, hotter. I could feel every inch of distance between us like a physical force. That joke you made, he continued, taking a step closer, about firing me or kissing me. You have no idea how long I've been waiting for you to say something like that. My brain stopped working. What? Months, Lucas. He let out a short laugh, almost humorless. I've been fighting this for months. Since that day you stayed late helping with the Thompson project. You were so focused, biting your pen, and I realized I was looking at you in a way a boss shouldn't look at an employee. I felt my face heat up. All those nights I spent wondering if I was imagining things, if those lingering looks meant anything, and he was feeling the same the whole time. You have no idea, he said, his voice getting huskier, how hard it was to keep this distance, to pretend it was just professional when you walked into my office, rehearsing every word, every gesture, so as not to reveal anything. He was an arm's length away now. I could see the fine lines around his eyes, the way his breathing was slightly quickened. But it's not just attraction, he said quickly, as if he needed to make that clear. It's not that. It's how you think, how you solve problems, how you defend your ideas even when everyone disagrees, the way you're kind to the cleaning crew, learning their names when no one else cares. I noticed all of that. My chest tightened. No one had ever seen me like this before. No one had paid attention to those details. Then why didn't you say anything? My voice came out almost as a whisper. Because I'm your boss. Damn it! He ran his hands over his face, frustration evident. Do you know how unethical this is? The power dynamic, the company policies, what people will think? I stayed up nights thinking about this, convincing myself it was wrong, that I should just let it go. And now? He looked me in the eyes, and there was something wild in that look, as if he had reached the limit of his own restraint. Now you made that stupid brave joke, and I realized I can't pretend anymore. I can't sit behind that desk anymore, looking at you and wishing I had the courage to be honest. Silence fell between us, heavy and tense. I could hear the hum of the air conditioning, the muffled sound of voices in the hallway. But in here, we were in a bubble, separated from the rest of the world. "Are you afraid?" I asked, surprising myself with the question. "I'm terrified," he admitted immediately. "Scared of losing my job, scared of ruining your career, scared of what they'll say about us. But do you know what I'm most scared of?" I shook my head, of getting old and looking back with regret for not saying anything, of letting fear stop me from something that could be real. He raised his hand, hesitant, and my whole body tensed in anticipation. His fingers touched my shoulder gently, and the heat of that touch shot through my shirt like electricity. "May I?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I couldn't find the words. I just nodded. His hand slid from my shoulder to the side of my neck, his thumb grazing my jawline. It was the gentlest, most careful touch, and at the same time, it felt like it was burning my skin. My eyes closed automatically, my whole body responding to that contact I had imagined so many times. "Look at me," he said softly. I opened my eyes and found him so close I could count the gray hairs at his temples, see the gray-green of his eyes, notice the small scar near his chin that I had never seen so closely. "I need to be sure," he said, his other hand finding my face now, holding me as if I were something precious and fragile. "That you want this. That it's not just a joke. That you feel something too." "I do," the words came out in a breath. "God, I do. So much it hurts. So much that I get scared of how much I feel." Something changed in his look, a decision made, a line being crossed. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to back away if I wanted to. But I didn't want to. I stood there, every nerve in my body on fire, waiting. When our lips met, it was as if the whole world disappeared. It wasn't dramatic or explosive. It was soft, almost reverent, as if we were both memorizing that moment. His hands still held my face with such delicacy that my heart ached. I could feel the slight tremor in his fingers, proof that he was just as nervous as I was. My own hands found their way to his waist, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, and everything I had imagined didn't even come close to reality. The taste of coffee in his mouth, the low sound that escaped his throat, the way his fingers tangled in my hair. When finally we pulled apart, we were both breathing hard. He rested his forehead against mine, eyes still closed, as if he too was trying to anchor himself in reality. "That was..." he began, his voice hoarse. "Yeah," I agreed, without even knowing what I was agreeing to, but he understood. We stayed like that for a few seconds, or maybe minutes. Time had lost its meaning. Eventually, he took a step back, and I felt the absence of his heat like a physical shock. "We need to talk about this," he said, and reality began to seep back in, infiltrating that bubble we had created. "I know." He ran his hand through his hair again, the nervous gesture returning. "What just happened changes everything, and we have to think about the consequences." My stomach tightened. "Do you regret it?" "No!" The answer was immediate and fierce. "God, no. But I'm worried. About you mostly. Your career is just starting. If this gets out, if people find out that we're... whatever this is, you could suffer more than me." I hadn't thought about that. I had been so focused on the moment, on the explosion of feelings, that I hadn't considered the real ramifications. "Company policies are clear on relationships between superiors and subordinates," he continued, starting to pace back and forth. The analytical executive was coming back, processing problems, calculating risks. Technically, I should report this to HR. And if I report it, one of us, probably me, would have to change departments or even leave the company. "So what are you saying?" My voice came out harder than I intended, defensiveness rising automatically. "That it was a mistake?" "No." He stopped and looked directly at me. "I'm saying we need to be careful. We need to think about how to make this work without destroying everything we've built professionally." The weight of that fell on me. It wasn't just about the two of us. It was about careers, reputations, the judgment of everyone in the office. "And if we can't?" I asked, my voice small. "Make it work, I mean." He crossed the distance between us in 2 strides, taking my hand, his fingers interlaced with mine, and it was at once comforting and terrifying. "Then we find a way. Because what I felt here," he squeezed my hand, "was too real to just ignore. But I need you to understand the risks. I need you to know what you're getting into." "Gossip," I said, understanding. "People will talk. They'll say I'm using you to advance my career, or that you're abusing your position." "Probably both," he agreed, the pain evident in his voice. "And it'll be worse for you. You're younger, newer to the company. I have an established reputation. But you... I'll be seen as the kid who seduced the boss." He grimaced. "I hate that. I hate that these are the realities we have to face." "But are we going to face them?" I asked, needing to hear the confirmation. He pulled my hand to his lips, kissing my knuckles gently. The gesture was so tender that my eyes stung. "I wouldn't have locked that door if I wasn't willing to try," he said. "But it has to be on our terms. Carefully. Maybe in secret, at least at first, until we figure out the best way to handle this." Secret. The word carried weight, promise, and danger intertwined. "How long a secret?" I asked. "I don't know. Long enough to ensure that when we go public, if we do, it's clear this is real. That it's not something casual or inappropriate. That we are 2 adults making a conscious choice." He was right. I knew he was. But the part of me that had just experienced that kiss wanted to shout it from the rooftops. I wanted everyone to know. "Can you do that?" he asked, studying my face. "Act normal at the office? Keep a professional distance in front of others?" "It's going to be hard," I admitted. "Now that I know what it's like to kiss you, it's going to be damn hard seeing you in meetings and pretending I'm just your employee." A small smile curved his lips, the same smile that had completely undone me half an hour ago. "For me too. But if it means being able to be with you outside of here for real, without pretending, it's worth it." "Outside of here," I repeated. "You mean this goes beyond this office? That it's not just—" "No," he interrupted firmly. "This isn't just something physical that happened in a moment of weakness. Not for me. If you're willing, I want to explore this. Get to know you beyond reports and meetings. See who you are when you're not trying to impress the boss." A laugh escaped me, half nervousness, half joy. "And who am I when I'm not trying to impress the boss?" "That," he said, his smile widening, "is exactly what I want to find out." He checked his watch and sighed. "It's almost 3. People will start coming back from lunch. We need to get out of here without looking suspicious, I know." But neither of us moved. We stood there, hands still intertwined, reluctant to break the bubble we had created. "This is real, right?" I asked suddenly. "I'm not having a very elaborate hallucination induced by work stress?" He laughed, a genuine warm sound I rarely heard from him. "If you are, then we're having the same hallucination." He squeezed my hand one last time before letting go. "We'll meet up, outside of here, tonight if you can." "I can," I answered immediately. "I'll text you the address, somewhere discreet where we can actually talk." I nodded, my heart still beating way too fast. He walked to the door, unlocking it, and reality came rushing back. In seconds, we'd be back to our roles: boss and employee, superior and subordinate, keeping the appropriate professional distance. But now I knew what lay beneath that facade, and he knew too. "Lucas," he said as my hand touched the doorknob. I turned back. "I don't regret anything," he said softly. "I just want you to know that. Me neither." And then I left, returning to my desk as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Every look we exchanged for the rest of the day carried a new weight. Every professional interaction had a hidden layer of meaning. When I finally left the office at 6, my phone buzzed. A message from him, an address, and 3 simple words. "I can't wait." I smiled at the screen, my heart racing again. Because now, for the first time, I wasn't just imagining possibilities. I was living one. And despite the risks, the fears, the complications that were sure to come, I couldn't wait to see where this would take us. In that locked room, with my heart still beating out of rhythm, we both stood there, looking at each other. Reality began knocking at the door, just as someone could have knocked at any moment. He let go of my hand slowly, but didn't pull away. He took a deep breath. "We need to talk about this," he said, his voice firm but gentle. "About what this means, about how we're going to handle all this out there." I knew exactly what he meant. In there, we were just two men attracted to each other, who desired each other. But out there, we were boss and employee. We were two men in a conservative environment. We were a calculated risk that could blow up in our faces. "I know," I replied, "but I don't want to pretend this didn't happen. I don't want to come back tomorrow and act like you're just my boss and I'm just another employee." He smiled, that crooked smile I had learned to identify as genuine. "Me neither, but we need to be smart, discreet, at least for now." And so began our double life. The first few days were a strange mix of euphoria and paranoia. Every glance exchanged in the hallway carried a secret weight. Every formal good morning hid memories of the night before, when he'd called just to hear my voice, when we talked late into the night about things we would never share in public. At work, we kept a professional distance. He called me you instead of my name when others were around. I avoided smiling too much when he spoke to me. We were careful, meticulous, but we were also in love. We met outside the office, discreet restaurants in distant neighborhoods where no one knew us, his apartment after hours, when we were sure no one else was in the building. Every stolen moment was intense precisely because we knew it was risky. "Have you ever thought about what it would be like if people knew?" I asked one night, lying next to him, my fingers tracing absent-minded lines on his chest. "Every day," he admitted. "But I also think about what it would be like not to have this, not to have you, and that second option is infinitely worse." But reality had other plans. It all started with Marcia from accounting. She was always too observant, too curious. One day, in the elevator, she commented casually, "You two seem very aligned lately. You work well together, don't you?" My heart raced. "We've always worked well together," I replied, trying to sound natural. She smiled in that way that said she knew more than she was letting on. Of course. It's just that lately it seems even more synchronized." When I told him, he tensed up. "We need to be more careful." And we were. But the more careful we were, the more it seemed the universe was conspiring to expose us. One morning, we were reviewing a report at my desk when he unconsciously touched my hand while reaching for a pen. It was just a second, accidental contact, but Rodrigo from marketing walked by at that exact moment. I saw his gaze catch the gesture, process it, file it away. "Shit," I muttered as Rodrigo walked away. Did he see? He saw. We spent the next few days hyper-vigilant. Every conversation seemed to have hidden ears. Every interaction was measured, weighed, calculated. The stress started affecting our private moments. When we were alone, instead of relaxing, we spent way too much time analyzing every little slip-up of the day. "This is driving me crazy," I confessed on a Friday night. "I love you, but I feel like we're living in a prison." "I know," he said, pulling me close. "I feel it too." But there were moments that made it all worth it. Like when he invented a fake meeting just so we could have 15 minutes together in the empty conference room. Like when he left a coffee on my desk with a note that just said, "Thinking of you," written in handwriting no one else would recognize as his. It was those small acts of rebellion against our own charade that kept me sane. Until the day we almost got caught for real. It was a Saturday, and we decided to be bold. The office was theoretically empty. Just the cleaning crew, who worked predictable hours. We arranged to meet to pick up some documents and spent an hour together in his office, just talking, laughing, being ourselves without fear. We were so absorbed in each other that we didn't hear the footsteps in the hallway. We didn't hear the door opening until it was too late. "Sorry, I didn't know anyone was here." It was Daniela, the HR director. She stopped at the door, eyes wide, processing the scene. The two of us sitting very close on the sofa in his office, my hand still on his knee, our expressions too guilty to be innocent. Time froze. My brain went into total panic. He was faster. Daniela! What a surprise. We were just reviewing the proposal for the Silva client. You know how demanding he is. We thought it best to work without interruptions. The lie came out smooth, professional. I moved away casually, as if nothing had happened. But Daniela wasn't an idiot. I saw in her eyes the exact moment she decided what to do with that information. Of course, she said slowly. Well, don't let me interrupt. I just came to grab some files. When she left, we sat in silence for 5 full minutes. My heart was beating so hard it felt like it was going to explode. She knows, I whispered. She suspects. That's different. No, she knows. I saw it in her eyes. He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd learned meant extreme stress. Even if she knows, what can she do? We don't have a policy against relationships between employees. Between employees, no. But between boss and subordinate? That's different. And you know it. The tension between us shifted after that day. It wasn't just paranoia anymore. It was real fear of real consequences. The following Monday, Daniela called me in for an informal chat in her office. My stomach turned. I wanted to talk to you about career development, she began, and for a second, I breathed a sigh of relief, but then she continued. It's important to maintain healthy professional relationships in the workplace. Do you agree? Yes, of course. Relationships that could create conflicts of interest or a perception of favoritism can be problematic for all parties involved. She wasn't saying it directly, but the message was clear. She knew, and she was giving me a warning. I understand perfectly, I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the internal panic. When I told him, his reaction surprised me. Instead of panic, I saw determination. I'm not giving up on you because of insinuations, he said. If she had proof or wanted to do something official, she would have done it. This is just intimidation. And if it's not, what if she's building a case? Then let her build it. I'm not doing anything wrong by being with you. You're not my direct subordinate. I've never given you preferential treatment. There's nothing unethical here. But there was. There was the perception. There was what people would think. There was the fact that in a conservative corporate environment, 2 men together would already be controversial enough. Add the power dynamic, and you had a ticking time bomb. In the following days, the tension mounted. Marcia and Rodrigo started having lunch together frequently, talking in low voices and glancing in our direction. A new intern casually remarked that some bosses are nicer to certain employees. The paranoia wasn't just ours anymore. It was real, palpable, growing. And then, on a gray Thursday, came the blow we feared. An email from Daniela. Meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Mandatory attendance. You, your direct manager, and a legal representative. Subject: internal procedures and professional ethics. My direct manager was him. This was no coincidence. They know, I said when I showed him the email. Someone must have formally complained. What do we do? He was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was calm, but I could feel the storm beneath it. We have 3 options. First, deny everything, keep up the charade. Pretend there's nothing between us. Second, one of us requests a transfer or resigns. Third, we come out, in the meeting, to them, to everyone. We stop hiding. I looked at him as if he had lost his mind. Are you serious? This could destroy your career. My career. Everything. Or, he said, taking my hand for the first time in weeks without looking around first, it could free us from this prison we created ourselves. The choice before us was impossible. Protecting our careers meant lying, perhaps ending what we had. Being honest meant facing unpredictable consequences in a world that wasn't yet ready to accept who we were. I spent the entire night awake, thinking, reliving every moment from that daring joke. Fire me or kiss me. until now. I had been brave that day. I had risked everything for a moment of honesty, and now I was considering going back into hiding for fear of what people would say. At 5 in the morning, I sent him a message. Option 3, we come out. The reply came seconds later. I was waiting for you to say that. When I arrived at the office the next morning, my heart was pounding, but my decision was made. No matter what happened in that meeting, I was no longer going to lie about who I was or who I loved. He was waiting for me by the elevator. When our eyes met, he smiled that smile that had started everything. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled back openly, not caring who was watching. Because I had learned something fundamental in those tense days, those stolen nights, that constant fear of exposure. It wasn't the world out there that held me captive. It was my own fear. And today, that fear was going to end, no matter the cost. And it was at that moment that I realized I couldn't live in hiding anymore. I couldn't pretend it didn't exist, that we didn't exist. The decision was made. If I was going to lose everything anyway, it might as well be by being myself, by being true. I looked at him, and he already understood. He could always read me, even when I was trying to hide. He squeezed my hand and said something I'll never forget. I'm choosing you. No matter what anyone says or does, I choose you. Always. And something inside me just broke open. Not from fear or panic, from relief. So much relief it actually hurt. Because for the first time in my entire life, I wasn't carrying this alone. For the first time, someone was ready to stand beside me, no matter what happened. The following Monday, we arrived at the office together. Not hand in hand, not making a scene, but together. And the way we walked in, side by side, with that complicity impossible to hide, said it all. The reactions were what I expected. Shocked looks, people whispering, awkward silences in doorways. Davey from finance literally turned and walked away when he saw us together at the coffee station. That stung. I'd liked him, we'd been friends, but it hurt less than I thought it would, because I wasn't carrying it alone anymore. Other people surprised me. Julia from accounting came up to me at the end of the day and just said, "Finally, right?" We all knew anyway. She was smiling genuinely. Carlos, my buddy for years, clapped me on the back and said, "Man, you look freer. It looks good on you." Little moments, small gestures, but they meant everything. HR, of course, wanted to talk. The three of us sat in the Human Resources Director's office, me, him, and that woman with a neutral expression who seemed to be calculating labor lawsuits in her head. She asked about conflicts of interest, about hierarchy, about professional ethics, and he answered with a calm that impressed me. There is no conflict of interest. He works in another department. There is no direct subordination. And as for ethics, I believe the only unethical thing would be to lie about who we are. We are adults, we are professionals, and we are transparent. That's all we can offer. The director was silent for a moment that seemed eternal. Then she sighed and said something that surprised me. "You're not the first, you know, and you probably won't be the last. What I need from you is professionalism. The rest is your life." We left that room with a strange feeling. It wasn't a complete victory, it wasn't total acceptance, but it was permission to exist. And for someone who had spent so much time hiding, that was revolutionary. The following weeks were a mix of adjustments and discoveries. I found out that not everyone cared as much as I thought they would. I discovered that some people were more prejudiced than I imagined. I found that others were silent allies I never knew I had. And mostly, I discovered that being authentic was much less exhausting than pretending. Of course, not everything was easy. There were people who requested a department transfer just to avoid working near us. There were tasteless jokes in the WhatsApp group that someone forgot to remove me from. There were looks of disapproval that lasted for months. But there were also invitations to happy hour that included both of us. There were people introducing their boyfriends and girlfriends saying, "Now I can do this too, right?" There was normality. And normality, for someone who lived in the closet for so long, is a luxury. One day, about 3 months after everything, I was in the conference room preparing a presentation. He came in, closed the door, and simply hugged me from behind. He rested his chin on my shoulder and just stood there in silence. It wasn't a gesture of overwhelming passion. It wasn't anything cinematic. It was just connection. It was just him saying, without words, that he was there, that he was going to stay there. And I realized that was it. It wasn't about grand gestures. It wasn't about facing the world with fists raised. It was about small moments of truth. It was about no longer needing to hide who I looked at with affection. It was about being able to be myself in the place where I spent most of my days. There's one thing no one tells you about coming out of the closet. You don't do it just once. You come out every day, in small and big ways. Every new client who asks if you have a girlfriend. Every company event where you bring him as your +1. Every Monday when someone asks how your weekend was and you answer, "We went to the movies," instead of "I went to the movies." They are daily choices of authenticity. And you know what I discovered? The more I made those choices, the easier it got. Not because people changed, some did, others didn't. But because I changed. Because I learned that their opinion of me mattered less than my opinion of myself. And for the first time, I liked who I saw in the mirror. Today, when I look back at that day, I made that joke. Fire me or kiss me. It feels like another life. It feels like it was another person. And it was, in a way. It was a version of me that still thought I had to choose between being authentic and being accepted. A version that didn't know that the best things in life happen when you stop performing and start living. He taught me that. Not with words, but with actions. With the way he held my hand even when there were stares. With the way he defended me without me having to ask. With the way he loved me not in spite of who I was, but exactly because of who I was. And me? I learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is having fear and doing it anyway. It's making a silly joke that can change everything. It's choosing the truth when the lie would be more comfortable. It's locking the door and finally letting someone in. Because when he smiled and locked that door, it wasn't just an office that got locked. It was a chapter of my life that closed. The chapter of hiding, of pretending, of living by halves. And another one opened. A chapter where I could be whole, where I could be real. Today, when we get into the elevator together and someone looks at us with that expression of disapproval, I smile. Because they can think whatever they want. They can approve or disapprove. They can talk behind our backs or greet us to our faces. None of that changes what we have. None of that changes who I am. And you know what's craziest? The job didn't fall apart. The company didn't go bankrupt. The world didn't end. The things I thought would happen, if I were honest, most of them didn't happen. And the ones that did, I survived. We survived. Actually, surviving is an understatement. We thrived. Because when you no longer spend energy hiding who you are, you have so much energy left to be who you want to be. To do better work. To live deeper relationships. To simply exist without that constant weight on your shoulders. The other day, a new intern struck up a conversation with me in the hallway. He was nervous, stuttering, clearly wanting to ask something but lacking the courage. Until he blurted out, How did you have the courage? To come out like that in front of everyone?" And I answered the only thing I could answer. The only truth I learned in all these months. I was more afraid of continuing to lie than of starting to be truthful. And that made all the difference. He nodded, with that look of someone who understood much more than the words said. And I saw in him a little of who I was. I saw the fear, the doubt, the hidden hope. And I wished he would find his courage sooner than I found mine. Because life is too short to live in hiding. It's too short to love by halves. It's too short to pretend you're someone you're not, just because it's easier. Just because it's safer. Just because it's what they expect from you. So if you're hearing this and see yourself here, if you've felt that crushing fear of just being who you are, if you've ever buried part of yourself thinking it would keep you safe, listen to me. Stop doing that. Stop building walls you can't even get over yourself. Stop being so terrified of losing things that might not be worth having anyway. And if you're wondering whether it's worth the risk, whether it's worth making that dumb joke, taking that huge step, opening yourself up to someone who might break you, I can't promise it'll work out. I can't promise the person will lock the door. I can't promise easy or that everyone will accept it. But I can promise this: it's worth trying. Even if it falls apart, at least you actually lived. At least you were brave. At least you took the shot. And that, in the end, means infinitely more than the approval of people too scared to be real. He's here by my side now as I tell this story. Not physically, he went to get coffee. But he's here in all the other ways that matter. He's here in the way I smile when I think of him. He's here in the feeling of security I carry now, even when he's not around. He's here in the certainty that tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, and all the days to come, he will be by my side. And I can be myself. That's love. It's not just kisses. It's not just passion. It's not just those cinematic moments we see in movies. It's also this: being able to be authentic, not needing to pretend. It's knowing that someone knows all of you, the beautiful parts and the ugly parts, and chooses to stay anyway. When he comes back with the coffees, he sees me recording and smiles. It's the same smile as when he locked that door. The smile that changed everything. And I smile back, because now I can. Now I don't have to hide. I made a joke. He smiled and locked the door. And it changed my life. If you've stayed with me until now, thank you for listening. Thank you for embarking on this journey of vulnerability and authenticity. And if this story touched you in some way, if you saw yourself in it, or know someone who might, share this video. Because the more we normalize these stories, the easier it becomes for the next person to be brave. Here on the Labios e Segredos channel, we tell real love stories in unexpected places. Stories of people like you and me, who love in ways that don't always fit into the boxes society created. If you want more stories like these, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, leave your like. Each of these gestures helps these stories reach those who need to hear them. And if you have a similar story, share it in the comments below. You don't have to give details if you don't want to. You don't have to expose anything that makes you uncomfortable. But if you want to share, we're here. This is a safe community. A community of people who understand that love is love, no matter how it comes. See you in the next video. And remember, life is too short not to be who you are. Be brave, be authentic, be you.